Gary O'Neill has been a speaker at Launchpad and many other job clubs for years and years and years. He is a local technical recruiter and has told us how the sausage is made with regard to the whole recruiting part and how recruiters use LinkedIn. He listened to every single word he says because he is a master at this as to how the system works, how people find you. And so he is now recruiting and hiring consultant for Hire Factors. The title of his presentation is Get to the Front of the Line. He is, let me see, we've got background in two different places. He's a corporate recruiting consultant who has trained and led high-performance recruiting teams that have made well over 15,000 hires. He has seen the inside story of how recruiting and hiring happened inside well over 300 different companies, from Fortune 100 companies to boutique startups. Let's see, his industry background is vast and includes software, IT, e-commerce, banking, public, semiconductor, engineering, manufacturing, sales, marketing, and environmental companies. His experience spans all levels, including C-level executives, senior management, technical leadership, high-performance professionals, as well as support staff and laborers. He will take you behind the scenes and show you the most effective and practical steps so you can take control of your job search. Let's give a great, big, huge welcome to Gary O'Neill.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all? Good. You know what? No wonder my hair's getting grayer and grayer with that list of stuff that she's talking about. Good Lord.
No, you're amazing.
Right. So, thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to be here. And what I'm going to do in the next hour is share as much as I can with you about if I were, actually, I was going to say, if I were out looking for a job, what I would do, but I'm going to change it a little bit. You'll see in the slide today, which is my notion was, what did I have on this next slide? How did I put it? I make my living because people get hired. And I've made my living because people get hired. Really, I make my living because corporations and the companies who I work with, my teams outsource recruiting for companies, because they're able to beat the competition by hiring a better team. So that's the angle with which I make my living, because people get hired. But I'm kind of a recruiting and hiring and employment geek. So I'm really interested in how it all works. So that's what we're here to talk about. There's a little bit of my street cred. So I've seen a lot, really, as all this says, from big companies to little companies to what have you. I learn new stuff every single day. It's shocking to me. People are insane, and all the different things that happen. So I do have quite a bit of street cred. If y'all wouldn't mind, maybe you'd humor me with something. Would you mind getting out your phone? Would you mind getting out your phone? So y'all get to participate in this. If you know how to scan a QR code to go to a website, that would be great. What you're going to do is you're going to get to answer some questions and do some surveys and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to register anything. There's nothing going to come for you. So you can either do that, or see up at the very top it says ahaslides.com/LPJC. If y'all would do that, that'd be awesome. I got 6 people connected, 7 people connected. This is the first time I've ever used this tool. 9, 10.
Gary, could you help us for those of us that are trying to figure out how to get a QR scanner on our phone?
You know what might be easier if you go straight to a browser and you just go to ahaslides.com/LPJC for Launchpad Job Club right up there at the top. And that's going to stay up there at the top for a period of time, so we're going to kind of move on for just a second. So a couple of things you could do on this just for fun, right? So there you go, right? Yes, I like this. Agree. Awesome. Cool, right? That works. I got 28 people online right now. You can also do questions and such on each one of these. I don't like this, right? The one cool thing about the I don't like it is when you do the up, it only does one thumb up across the screen. You can just like flood. You can just like, you can just sit there and click it over and over and over. So you don't like something, you can really, really let me know that you don't like it. Yeah, there you go. Awesome. And then I got a question, right? There should be a place where you could put in a question. Got a question? So what'll happen is we'll see these things start popping up, I hope. All right? Can you do a question? Does this page have a question for you? Ask a question. Oh, there they are. They're starting to pop up. Awesome. So check it out. We're not going to go through these questions. Well, you can. Let's see if they're legitimate questions or where somebody's just helping out. QR scanner, what time is it? Testing, there we go. All right, cool. So what's going to happen is on each one of the slides, you can ask questions, right? So please interrupt me, raise your hand, and let everybody know the question. If you want to type something you don't feel like talking about, you can do that. And I'll check before we flip on the ones to see whether or not people have questions or not. So thank you for helping me out with this. All right, we'll see see how that goes. I'm just curious, what job titles fit you now and in the past? I kind of want to understand the audience that we got. Just put in a couple of job titles that you've had or the ones that you're looking for. I'm just kind of curious. Partly I'm curious about this tool, but I want to know who you guys are a little bit more. Yes, sir.
Director of Operations.
All right, cool. Type it in for me if you don't mind. Yeah, type it in. There you go. Regional sales. Awesome. Thanks for letting me play with this little tool, but it will be interesting to see. All right. It may slow us down a little bit too much. We'll see. Engagement manager, purchasing manager, supply chain manager, regional sales, sourcing manager, right? Regional sales. We got a lot of people somehow in sales and account management. Either that or they're just on their phone faster because they're the communicators of the world, right? Right. We got a recruiter. Look at that, technical account manager, PMP. Awesome. That's kind of fun, huh? All right. So we'll get a photographer. All right, so we'll get an idea through this, and in fact, you guys can get an idea through this, kind of what this is, because...
So is the program manager bigger because there are several people that have the same title?
Yeah, in fact, if somebody else puts in program manager about 3 times, then that one will definitely get biggest. All right. And just know, I don't know who you are, right? We don't have tracking information, but I do afterwards got to keep the results, right? It'll store those so I can go back and kind of look. So let's move on to the next one real quick. My biggest challenges are, with respect to job search, I'm curious. What do you think your biggest challenges are? Put in a couple of those. Thank you for helping me with this. Thank you for participating. I appreciate your time. Ageism, there you go. Pivoting into a new industry, lack of experience, age, networking, getting past the ATS interviews, informational interviews, overcoming, look at that. Getting response to resumes sent out, finding out, we're going to address lots of these if we have time. By the way, I've got a lot of stuff, and I've got so much to tell you. We could talk about this stuff for days. But in the period of time that I've got, my commitment to you is this, which I'm not going to rush through things. If we don't finish what it is that I have to say, this weekend I'm going to go in front of my camera and I'm going to record the rest of this for you. So I'll put it out on YouTube so you can have it, right? So, because I don't want to rush through it, and I'll see what I can do to make sure that I go back and try to address some of these questions that maybe we don't get to today. So that way it won't take me very long, right? I mean, I'll just flip on the camera and talk to you till I've said everything I had to say today if I run out of time. All right, very cool. So hopefully we'll address a lot of these as we go, but I'm going to try to address the ones that we don't sometimes in this follow-up. That'd be all right? You guys all right with that? Okay, cool. And you will be able to put in questions at any time. I think they're only going to appear on the particular slide. I don't know if they're just going to keep on stacking up as I go through, but I want to know more about, right? So these are areas that I'm just curious that's similar to the other one, but it's like I could talk to you about picking a direction. I could talk to you about your elevator pitch, resumes that rock, leveraging LinkedIn, networking that really works. And this is some stuff that isn't just about going to networking events, how to ace your interview, negotiating an offer, or it's not on this list. If you put something else, please put a question down here. Look at that. Networking that works. Very cool. Hey, somebody's got something else. And just for a moment, I'm going to go see what we get if I click on this questions. I want to see if it continues at 9 or not. Oh, okay, cool. So I think I can mark that one as answered. I can mark it as answered. How to find salaries in event management, hospitality, community outreach. We'll leave that one there. That one, I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm getting no feedback on why I'm not succeeding in the interview. So some of these, as I go through them, we'll pin them and try to answer them later. All right? Okay, cool. This is kind of the final one, and this I don't remember. Can you type on this one? Here's the question that's always kind of been in my head, right? I think about this a lot, which is, what does everyone who get hired have in common, or do in common, or what have you? Because the idea is that if we knew what they had and what they do, everyone who gets hired, like everyone, if we could find the one thing that they have in common, we should do that, right? Now, they don't all necessarily have a great resume. I have people get hired all the time who don't have a resume at all. I've never had a resume in my entire career. I've never had one. I never will at this point. So it's not that. I'm just curious, what does everyone who gets hired have in common? Luck, good energy, inside contact. So let me just go through these. I know lots of people get hired who don't have an internal contact. That's awesome, but it's not that. Luck, I'm not sure about luck. I don't believe in it. They have good energy. I know people who have horrible, nasty, terrible energy, and I can't believe anybody employed them anywhere, so that's not it. Effective networking, super helpful. Inside confidence. Confidence, I know people have flop sweats in interviews and have no confidence who get employed, right? Enthusiasm, connection to the interviewer, they have ageism and they get hired. So all of these things are true. Thank you for this, but the only thing that I've ever been able to come up with is they get to the front of the line. That's it. That's the one thing that I know not a single person who got hired who didn't get to the front of the line. And the front of the line is essentially the hiring manager. That's the person who ultimately makes the decision as to whether you're going to get hired or whether you're not going to get hired, or whether they're going to extend you an offer or not. At that point, you decide whether or not you're going to accept it. So both people have to decide, right? I know of 0 people who got hired who didn't get all the way to talking to that decision maker. Do you? So, I'm in your way, your resume is in your way, your LinkedIn profile is in your way, that networking thing that you're going to go to this weekend, those things are all in your way, right? So it's all about getting to the front of the line. So we're going to talk about that. Does that make sense? You guys good with that? By the way, if you like these ideas, I would like to know too, it'll record this, like, if you agree with me, if you disagree and say, no, that's stupid, right? Or you don't understand, that would be awesome. I want you to understand a few basic things. Hiring is a bunch of micro decisions. It is not one big decision. I think that people think that it's all about somebody's going to make one big decision as to whether or not you get an offer or not, right? I'm here to tell you that getting hired and recruiting and all the things is a massive series of these little tiny micro decisions, right? Little tiny micro decisions that are happening all the time. And those micro decisions come with sound effects. The sound effects are like, oh, yeah, yeah, great. And the sound effects are like, nah, right? You feel the difference in those, very different energy, right? So here's a place where there's a sound effect. You send me your resume, and your name on your resume is, LJC sales resume version 3, like whatever the date is, and I'm kind of going, meh, right? You just got one, right? I just evaluated you. I just judged you because of the name of your file name. That's really cool. It's convenient for you, but it makes me go, well, what other resume do you have? And what do you mean sales resume? And what else do you do? How many versions do you have, right? I'm just saying that regardless of it, we as human beings make these little decisions, right? You ever heard of confirmation bias? Yeah. Who can tell us what confirmation bias is? Somebody? Anybody? Tell us, Dan.
That's where you interpret information that you're receiving in a way that echoes your preconceived notions.
Yeah, and in fact, further than that, did y'all hear him? He said it's a way of looking at stuff that you echo your preconceived notions, right? And sometimes, even if I don't have preconceived notions, we like to be right. I like to be right. Don't you like to be right? And what happens is, once we've made a decision, even a little tiny micro decision based upon your file name, or the fact that your resume is crowded, because you know why your resume is crowded is you took somebody's advice that your resume should never be 2 pages long. What a total bunch of horseshit that is. But the answer is your resume shouldn't be boring and irrelevant, and if it starts becoming much more than 2 pages long, it's probably boring and irrelevant. But if what you do is you make the margins 1/8 of an inch and you crowd it all just to get it to 2 pages, I'm like, meh, right? Are you kidding me? So what confirmation bias is about, we like to be right, and once I've made a decision, regardless of how small it is, as a human being, I continue to look for evidence to reinforce the decision that I just made. Does that make sense? Let me give you an example. I've seen so many, and I've done it on purpose sometimes because I'm this weird geeky guy who experiments with people and what's in my industry and what we do. I've heard so many managers and interviewers like, read a resume. I'll bring a stack. I'll say, I just want you to read this to me. Just read it out loud. Tell me your thoughts as you're going through it, right? And there are things like, oh, this, they might be hiring somebody who's an administrative assistant. Oh, well, this person's been at Frog Design. They really only hire good people. Maybe they know design too. We need to get some logos done. I'm kind of going, are you kidding me? right? You just read that much into it based upon where somebody worked as to what's going on with this person. I can tell you that even at that resume level, for people who I've known very well, and I have people look at resumes, amazing number of preconceived notions and reinforcement of those kinds of things. My point in this is that it's a whole series of micro decisions, and the takeaway that I'd love for you to have is that and I don't want you to make you paranoid, but just consider this, that every word on your resume, every bullet point on your resume, everything you talk about in an interview, consider whether or not it's going to make the person who's reading your resume or you're communicating with like you more or not. If you're not sure that the thing you're about to say or the thing you're about to put on your resume or the thing you're about to whatever, if you're not confident that that's going to make somebody more interested in you with regard to the kind of role that you're talking to them about, then leave it out, right? Leave it out. Less is a whole lot more, because if you start this notion of these little negative micro decisions going on, even things on your resume that aren't relevant to where you're going, there are these little micro decisions that happen, and the next thing you know, you're out of consideration. So that's just a real high-level thought. Does that make sense? All right, so just stick with that. All right, here's my notion of what I wanted to do with the rest of this presentation, though, is that my idea of, I've often done this kind of saying, hey, you know, if I was going to go find a job, let me tell you what I would do. Instead, I thought I'd make it a little bit more pointed, which is, if I got paid because you got hired, right? I make my living because people got hired. If we change the game and I got paid because you all got hired, right? Here's what I know, or here's what I believe, is that if over the course of the next 90 days you didn't do any of these things and I weren't here talking to you, I would make X amount of money. I really firmly believe that if you take into consideration seriously some of the things I'm going to tell you, they're probably going to be contrarian to things you've been told before, but I do make my living because people get hired. I will make more money if you do a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. I really will. In fact, I would suggest that within the next 6 to 8 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, we could make a massive difference. Because as a recruiter, my job is to connect with human beings, to connect with people, right? And most of the work that my teams do, we outsource recruiting departments for companies that have the kinds of roles that nobody's going to respond to a job ad. So we headhunt. We go find people, and we connect with people. Companies are make-believe. The people who decide about hiring you, they're other people. And so what's going to really happen here is that the way to really land an awesome job and to get it done, when I'm recruiting, I got about 4 to 7 weeks to make something happen. So I get on it, and we're reaching out to a lot of people. I would do the exact same thing if I was looking for a job. It's not about finding a job. It's about finding that person who's in the community, who has the kinds of problems that I solve and needs my help, right? And needs my help. I think you can get after it. So here's some things. These are a handful of points that I've got that said, hey, if I got hired because you got hired, here's what I want you to do. These are the things that I want you to do so I can selfishly get paid. The very first one is, I want you to pick one job type. I want you to pick one. I know that it's harder, but I get paid if the majority of you pick one. Now, there are some of you in this group, right? Statistics are a funny thing, right? There are some of you in this room for whom, if we had a conversation, I'd say, oh yeah, let's do go-to-market under both headings, right? Let's do approach both approaches. So I'm not saying it's absolute, but if the majority of you, I know some of you who are new, we're talking about, well, operations and sales and stuff like that. As a recruiter and somebody who's doing hiring, I'm going to have a whole set of people who are very clear about what they want to do, and you just became less interesting to me. So what I know is that being open to possibilities limits your options and isn't something that makes you more interesting to people. So if I wanted to get paid, I'd want as many of you as I could to pick one job path and one job type. By the way, there were a number of you who I think were on that list who are like, I'm not sure how many of you are crystal clear on the kinds of problems that you solve and the type of role that makes sense to you. I don't want to ask, I just don't want to ask everybody right now. But, you know, sometimes you've heard this notion of follow your passion, right? Anything, you know, some of these things where you're trying to find what your passions are. Has anybody heard that about this? That's a funny thing to me. And the funny thing about that is, to me, passion has emotion in it, right? Passion has these things. I tell you what, I kind of am passionate about recruiting and hiring, but there are a lot of other things that I'm passionate about that I absolutely love that no one's going to pay me any money for, right? I don't want to be a starving musician here in town. So I really think that if you're not clear on what role for you, if you're not clear on what direction you've got, I would suggest it's not about finding your passion, it's about finding something you're curious about that people will pay you money for. Find something you're curious about and pick one. So that's what I want you to do so that I get paid. I want you to pick one. All right, does that make sense? How do you feel about that? On these slides, I'm going to say, how do you feel about this? Do you disagree with me? Do you kind of go, yeah, but I'm not sure how. This is going to be a recurring thing. Or I agree with this and I will change it. Or I agree and I do this already. So this is going to happen every single one of these points, and I'm just curious. That's kind of fun, huh? You like that? Kind of fun? And while that's going on, I'm going to see what questions we have over here at this point in time. Find salaries in event management, hospitality. I'm getting no feedback, so I'm going to put newest at the top. Questions about company culture. All right, signing bars by city. Okay, cool. So some of these I may get to when I do my follow-up from this whole thing. All right, cool. So a lot of people do this already, and some of you go all the way down to disagree. I'm going to tell you one more story about this. Would that be all right? One other quick story. So here's how, part of the reason why I really believe this, of so many stories, but let me just pick one. So it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was working with an individual who had been in the semiconductor industry. He'd always been in operations roles for a good long time, 15 years or so, pretty senior. Some things that happened, and for one reason or another, he was always good with managing his teams and leading teams, had gone over into the HR side of things for about 5 years in a semiconductor company. One of my clients was a big semiconductor company, and they had an opening in HR, and their notion was, hey, somebody who'd actually been in the core business who transitioned over to HR really wants to do HR. We're very interested in that. This is a senior vice president role that we're talking about. I even coached this individual saying, hey, somebody's likely to trick you along the way, and they're likely to say, hey, if we had an operations role open and an HR role open, right? I suggest you be really clear on what matters to you. We go all the way through, it gets pretty much toward the end. He's meeting with the president or CEO, I forget, who then says, hey, but we're also bringing people on the operations side of things, which would you be more interested in? And the feedback that I got is, yeah, we're not hiring this person. He's not really clear on what it is that he wants to do. So that's how much it can matter. I've lost a lot of money because people weren't clear on what they wanted to do. So there's that. The next thing that I want you to do, or so that I get paid, is I want you to have a really compelling career story. I don't like the phrase elevator pitch, but I want you to have a very clear, compelling career story. And the way to think about what your career story is that if I were to ask you, so, tell me about yourself, right? Which, by the way, that little phrase, so, tell me about yourself, what people tell me, I get two most common answers, which is, well, I was a project manager over XYZ company. I managed, I kept budgets on budgets and schedule on schedule and quality on quality. And before that, I was a project manager over ABC company. I kept schedule on schedule. They moved backward in time, giving me many job descriptions. And the fact that they were a project manager, I already knew all of that, and they're getting really boring. Right? That's getting really boring. I move them on to the next thing. Or they start telling me and self-aggrandizing about me, and here's what I do, and this is what I'm like as a person, those kinds of things. And I think the reason why is because the missing piece in this is, so tell me about yourself with regard to the role that we're talking about in the company that I'm working for and my ability to be successful because I hire you. So it's very much about that job. So I believe that what their compelling story really is intended to do is to paint a mental picture of the future. No one hires you because of what you did in the past. They hire you because of their mental ability to project you as successful in the future. Now it turns out that if you have a long, solid history with a track record of success doing this thing, it's a lot easier for me to picture you moving out in the future, but I never hire you for your past. No one does. They might think they do, but the only thing anybody uses your past and your successes for is to try to figure out whether or not they should hire you and whether or not you're going to be successful going forward. So my suggestion to you with respect to your career story so that I get paid is that your mental picture that you create is all about the future. It's really not about your past, right? It's really where are you going and has nothing to do with what you did in your past, particularly in your resume, right? The summary of your resume ought to be this career story. Your career history supports it moving forward. Does that make sense? You guys good with that? Of one of these? I got one. I got one. So here we go. I have a little pattern that I use, and And on that previous slide, you may have seen, said, what do you want somebody else to say about you? And the reason why I have this little pattern is that my team introduces individuals into companies and hiring organizations and the rest in interviews all the time, right? I just started my company a year ago. I guess we made about 80 hires last year, me and one other person did, with the help of a couple of others, so a lot. And when we're presenting individuals, professionals, to the organizations who are doing the hiring, I use this pattern. And I say, well, you know, this person is I'll show you in just a second, but that's the reason why I use this pattern, right? And at the end, I'll give you a chance to send me your email address and stuff, and I'll send you this presentation so you can have these things, so you can take pictures of it, but I'll send it to you. But here's one. My name is Gary O'Neill. I'm a certified network administrator and IT security specialist, or this is how I might present a candidate, right? With CompTIA A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus and MCSE certifications, they help companies keep users productive, minimize IT costs, and protect company assets and data. The key thing here, by the way, is this is not a list of the tasks that they perform. This is the list of the outcomes of the tasks that they perform that actually ties to the business, and you'll be the only person who's talking to the hiring manager about things the hiring manager cares about. This is what the hiring manager cares about. Their skills include this one, that one, and the other one. And here's their current situation, ready to join an organization where effective IT management can make a significant difference to the business. I've honed this and honed this and honed this because what I need to do is for hiring managers and others to present people over. Hey, I just got off the phone with Ed. I'm really excited about it. You know, he's a software developer and a cloud development specialist with significant experience in both, Google Cloud platform as well as AWS. What he's really great at doing is ensuring that the software development teams he works with have the platforms and the templates and the knowledge that they need to just successfully develop in the cloud. Specifically that includes .NET, C#, as well as Python, as well as significant experience with Kubernetes and these kinds of, so there it is. That's exactly how I present people over. It's exactly how I train people. And the reason why is because my chance of getting paid goes up, because as soon as I do that, the hiring managers and the others don't even need to look at their resume anymore. They just kind of go, okay, great, because I just painted a picture in their mind of the person who they really want to hire. Does that make sense? You with me? Okay. All right. I hope that makes sense. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because if you were to get a job faster and you were able to put together a compelling story like this, I promise you, when you need to use it, it will help you get hired faster. How do you feel about this one? You disagree? You're not sure how to do it? You would agree with this? Agree and do it already? Awesome. There you go. Perfect. All right, there's still only 4 questions down there, so I'll check every single time. Here's the third thing I want you to do. So you get hired faster and I get paid faster. That would be awesome. Super simple resume. Super simple resume. Use your career story that we just talked about as the summary of your resume. Because I think the structure of your resume is such that your work history needs to lead up to that summary, and since your career summary is a projection of you going forward, right, it just naturally fits that way. You don't have to say anything about your past in your summary, because here's the deal. You send somebody your resume, they go, man, file name, why that file name, right? There's a little micro decision. Open your resume. It's all crowded and stuff like that. Already decided, right? By the way, if I'm a recruiting assistant and some of them are really busy and it's on Friday afternoon and my eyes are bleeding because I've looked at 1,000 resumes this week and before I can leave I got to look at 250 more, funny file name, crowded stuff, kind of stuff, nobody's going to double check my work. Guess what? Done, right? It can be done that fast. So, simple resume, they're easy to look at, lots of bullet points, doesn't make somebody's eyes bleed. Your career stories are summary, and here's what I think is really important, which is I teach my recruiters, and some of the greatest recruiters that I've ever known, we read your resume from the bottom up. I have no idea why resumes are the way they are. I mean, isn't your career a story? I want to know your story. Because if I can see the path that you've been on and project that out into the path of this role inside of this company, I now have a really good idea of whether or not you're going to be successful. Because we have long-term relationships, and it's really important to me that you be successful. So we read it from the bottom up. The best resumes tell a story, right? And I can see it. Look, they started here, and then they did that, and they had this kind of internship, and there was a little turn in their career. I wonder what that's for. They didn't tell me, but okay. And so I read it from the bottom up. My point to you, though, is that if your resume reads well from the bottom up, the people who read it from the top down, which is 99% of people, they'll like it better and they won't even know why, right? Most resumes are these little disjoint chunks of things that don't seem to flow together and there's no connection between them, and you kind of go, wait, this person was working in hotel and restaurant management and they were running this bar and stuff like that, and the next thing they're a Unix administrator or an ABM ANRO? That doesn't make sense to me. Right? That's a really big when you confuse people. And the real story on that individual was they were going to U of H downtown. They were getting all kinds of, they were in a computer science degree as well as that. One of their main customers was the IT director over at ABN AMRO at the bar that he worked at, right next to ABN AMRO. So as soon as he got his degree and certifications in Linux, they hired him. The resume was weird, but that was the real story. Once we changed it and we put the story in his resume, then people go, oh, that makes sense. So make sure that your resume makes sense and it ought to tell a story. Only includes that are relevant to things that are true in your career story, only things that are relevant. And what I mean by that is, yes, sir?
How did you put that story in the room?
Literally put it in there, where that transition is, in the space in between, not just the educational section, but in the space in between during that period of time, put in that period and that period. Going to, University of Houston, computer science student, going to school in the evenings to do these kinds of things. The person who hired, we literally put it in there. The person who hired me was one of my regular customers. As soon as I got my degree, bam, they brought me on board, and then it makes people go, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? That makes sense. Doesn't have to be that long, but literally tell, put your career transition in. Laid off as a part of a group of, 40 people. Went to Launchpad Job Club, did these kinds of tell your story. If you tell your story in your resume, I get paid, right? That's how this works. Only include things that are relevant to your career story. I've got so much to tell you about that. But here's what I believe the simple version of this is. I was working with a gentleman a few years ago now. It's just kind of a good way to tell this story. He had been in any number of manufacturing environments and had often been on the quality side of things. Had to fill out lots of OSHA paperwork, and the last place he was in quality and manufacturing, they did welds and inspected welds and stuff for pieces that were going into aircraft, and so into fighter aircraft actually. And so repetitively, he and his team every day testing the same stuff. Oh my God, so boring, right? I'd go crazy. But for years did that, crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's on some really complex forms for the federal government and the rest, right? So he was trying to move into the technology industry, figured he could get a role in QA. I actually presented him over to someone because he was a hiring manager was trying to hire a user interface QA professional inside of a company that does medical software. And of course, his immediate bounce back, because the hiring manager didn't read my notes, immediate bounce back was, what does manufacturing have anything to do with software? This person's never been in a software environment. Well, what we did is, all I had to do is change it and say, well, it has nothing to do with manufacturing. It has to do with attention to detail every single day for years. It has to do with complex paperwork. It has to do with, all of these things that weren't specific. What his resume had on it was, use this kind of welding inspection machine, did this kind of stuff to this level of torque, like all kind of detail about what it meant to do that kind of work. All we had to do is change it and said, unbelievable attention to detail, filed government paperwork for, this kind of stuff with 99% accuracy, right? And the next thing you know, the hiring manager goes, oh, that makes sense. He got hired and was wildly successful. That's an example of when he was trying to transition into technology. The details of what he did in manufacturing didn't matter at all, but it's about the only things that were relevant to where he was going with his career was the characteristics of what he did. Right? Does that make any sense? I could talk to you about that a lot. Hopefully that makes some sense. Is that helpful at all? The details of what you did in the past don't matter, right? Especially if they're not relevant. In fact, all those details that you put on there that are not relevant make you less interesting. Convert them into something that is more interesting to me. Why does that matter to me that you use that particular welding inspection machine? It doesn't. Then don't put it in there, right? Don't put it in there. The last couple of things, don't try to hide stuff, really. So like no months on your dates, my assumption is when you got no months on your dates, if you said, from 2012 to 2013, if I was in a snarky mood on a call I was interviewing, I interview people every single day, by the way, and I have forever. If you had that, if I was snippy on the snarky, I'd say, oh, what, you worked for 2 days, the last day of December and the first day of January? How'd you get laid off? What happened, right? You started a job and got laid off in 2 days? And of course, that wasn't the real story. The reason why is history tells us who do this as professionals is that things that you try to hide in your resume, we know every single trick, and all I know is if you're trying to hide something, we're going to see it, and that just creates an integrity problem. This is one of the things that I'm going to tell you that most people who give career advice and resume advice are going to say something that's exactly the opposite of what I tell you, which is, I really believe you need to embrace your story. I believe that you need to tell your story. And I believe that all the different techniques like functional style resumes and not putting resumes on your dates and chopping your resume off after 10 years creates more integrity problems than it solves otherwise. That's just me. I've had far more hiring managers, let's just pick the one where somebody cut the resume off after 10 years. Far more hiring managers say, you know, I was really expecting this person to be in their mid-30s to late 30s, and I don't really care, but, you know, I mean, they're in their late 50s. I feel misled. Be careful. People will feel misled. It creates an integrity problem.
So if you're not supposed to hide things, but you're only supposed to include things that are relevant, what if the things that you're leaving off are not relevant?
Oh, so the question was, you know, if you're only supposed to talk about things that are relevant and the things that you're leaving off aren't relevant, right? And my answer, and we could talk about this forever, is that everything you've ever done, there's some relevancy to it. Things that were way back in the past, you can collapse 15 years into one place on your resume. But let me give you a specific example. I started my career as a software engineer down at NASA, working on Space Station Control Center, doing synchronous and asynchronous message handling on the back end. I would never, in fact, if I had my resume, I would put that on there, but I would not put the fact that I was a senior software engineer. That's irrelevant. What I would put is I was a team leader, and the only thing that I would talk about was the fact that I hired people. I not only hired people, but I coached and mentored people. I did employee performance reviews. That was 1% of what I did, but it's the only thing that I did that was relevant anymore. So all that stuff that I did is about a software engineer. It's kind of relevant because I work with a lot of technology companies, so I'd probably put a little bit of that in there, but there's something, you know, before that I was a waiter at the Magic Time Machine. For those of you who are old enough to know that, I was Tarzan. I was Tarzan and I was Captain Hook. Captain Hook was more fun because he can abuse the tables and actually get tips for it. I could even put that on there, right? I mean, that's where I really learned how to interact with people in a professional setting. I mean, so much I learned in that job. Any of you have ever been a server, right? You learned a lot in that job. Everyone, y'all should be a server sometime. It's one of the best jobs I ever had. Avoid fancy formatting. Last thing I have to say on this, and we're gonna pick up the clip. Really avoid fancy formatting. Here's the reason. One, it makes people's eyeballs bleed, particularly late in the day. And two is I wish I could show you, I had time to show you, a lot of the applicant tracking systems absolutely mangle it. Absolutely mangle it. And not only do they absolutely mangle it, but companies of any size, even medium-sized companies these days, use applicant tracking systems. Inside of the applicant tracking systems, still many of them don't bring up the formatted version of your resume because it's too slow. We're looking at the text that we extract out of your resume. And when you have one of those resumes that's in a PDF and you have little pie charts that show where your skills are and all that kind of stuff, it looks like in the applicant tracking system. So probably don't. You're assuming that somebody's actually looking at your resume, yeah? Not looking at your resume. Not at that point, right? Not at that point. And when it gets sucked into that kind of thing and it doesn't even have your first... By the way, if you're sending a Word document over, you know, that header area, don't put your name and stuff up there. Lots of them don't look in the header area and they won't, you know what I'm talking about? In a Word document, there's a header. Don't put stuff up there. A lot of these systems don't pull it out. Don't use that. All right. You know what? I'm going to move on. I'd love to do that, but I'd rather tell you stuff. This is one of the most important things that I have to tell you. This is one of the most important. If you don't take away anything from what I'm telling you, and you know, you might not, this is one where if you can disagree with me all day long, I'll just tell you, you're wrong, right? This is the thing that I have to tell you, which is do not ever just apply for a job. Ever, right? I wouldn't. Here's the reason why. You apply for a job online, first of all, you're at the end of the line. All the hiring's at the front of the line, right? You got to do all the things, and really it's very real that the more you can make the words, and if you take the job description, copy and paste it into a document, put your name and contact information on the top, you'll score very high in the applicant tracking system. You'll be at the top of the list. I would call you because I think it was funny, but most places won't. But I'm just saying, the closer your resume matches the job description in terms of literally the words that are in there. By the way, people always want to think about like keywords like Cisco or things that are specific. I'm saying if their job description has the word unique in it and you put the word unique in your resume, it's going to match that because nobody else is going to have the word unique in it. So there's a whole lot of work that you can do on doing all those kinds of things. But if I was looking for a job, and in fact, rather than you spending a bunch of time doing all that tailoring and stuff like that, I would have you do this instead. In fact, if it were me, I'm not going to ask you to do this. If I was me looking for a job, even the ones that I found posted online, which by the way, Kathy was saying earlier, less than 20% of all hires are associated with somebody applying for a job, by the way. But even when you are applying for the job, if it were me, I'd probably skip it. And I would probably go straight to finding the hiring manager. I'd go find the recruiters. I'd go find some peers. And as a matter of fact, I would probably go find, depending upon the size of the company, somebody who's the likely hiring manager's boss, right? And I'm going to reach out to them, right? I'm going to reach out to them because I'm going to get myself to the front of the line. So it's about seeking out the hiring manager, the recruiter peers on LinkedIn. If you want to, if you'd like, if I go record some of this stuff this weekend and add to it, because I know we're going to run out of time, I can show you how to do that on LinkedIn. I don't want to do it right now because we're going to run out of time. But the,
So 12, if you want. Because
well, if we have time, then we'll go back and do that. If we want to go back and do that. But find them and connect with them on LinkedIn. My suggestion to you is that once you're connected with them on LinkedIn, usually you can get their email address, you can look at their contact information, get their email address. If you're connected with multiple people inside of that company, you'll find the pattern of the email address, because even if somebody has their personal email address, you might want their work address to communicate about work-related things. Although, if they gave you their personal email address on their LinkedIn profile, they must have been expecting somebody might email them there. I would. And oh, by the way, communicate with them outside of normal channels. If you see they have a Twitter and you actually go look and they actually use it, you'll be the one and only person who's out there in terms of the job search market who sends them a direct message in Twitter, right? I promise you get their attention. I do it with, this is what I do as a recruiter. I flip this the other way all the time. There are certain roles, like I'm working on a cloud DevOps software engineer role that's got these specifications that are insane. But the people who I'm talking about to are the ones that I actually found them through a different channel, because recruiters and everybody else bugged them so much. I'm the dude who came around through Twitter and other kinds of things. So get people's attention, right? The reason why I communicate by email as opposed to sending messages inside of LinkedIn, anybody got a guess why I would suggest you go through email instead of trying to communicate with these people through LinkedIn? Yes, sir?
It's faster now that they check their LinkedIn all the time.
It's faster? And what?
They don't check their LinkedIn.
They don't check their LinkedIn, and on top of that, LinkedIn does send email messages when stuff happen. They think they're a social media site or something. People got tired of being bombarded by all the LinkedIn stuff, and especially if you're in technology, certain roles, they filter everything from LinkedIn into the spam or what have you, so you're not going to reach them that way. So I bail out of LinkedIn as fast as I possibly can. I love it to be able to find people, but it's not a great way to communicate with people. You can try it. I'm not saying don't try it, but email is usually more effective.
If you're not already connected to them.
Yeah.
Once you send a message, you cannot send another way until they reply.
True. Yeah, that is true. Well, what's the alternative? Hey, by the way, y'all have your phones out, right? I want to show you something cool. I want to see if any of y'all know this already. No. No, you don't. Yeah. All right. So do you know about this? If you bring out your phone, if you have LinkedIn on your phone, down here on the bottom it says My Network. It's this little tab you do down here at the bottom says My Network. And once you're on My Network, there's this little bust of a person with a plus sign. Click that. And then where it says Find Nearby, just turn that on. And the only reason why I want you to turn that on is you can do whatever you want to, but find me on there and connect with me. That would be awesome. But you might want to connect with a lot of other people. By the way, quick thing on LinkedIn. I talk about that one a lot. We're not talking about it a lot today. But I would like to be first person connected to every single person in LinkedIn, and I suggest you do too. All right? There's no reason to not be connected to someone on LinkedIn. The idea is build your network as big as you possibly can. I want to be connected to however 500 or 600, however many million people there are. If you have a LinkedIn profile and you do not have a sizable network, it's similar to not having a LinkedIn profile at all. And the reason why is because my team headhunts, right? That's what we do. We go find people so that we can change their lives by helping them get better associated with a better job at one of my clients. What was I talking about? So anyway, so through, so building your network, because, here it is. When I run a search on LinkedIn, If you're not in my network, you do not come up in my search results. If you're not in my network, you do not come up in my search results. If you're not in my network, you do not come up in my search results. If you're not connected to the recruiters and the hiring managers and the people who are looking for you, you will not come up in their search results. So having a LinkedIn profile with a tiny network, you may as well not have a LinkedIn profile at all. So connect with me. You'll pick up, I don't know, you'll pick up a bunch of contacts just to me. Another aside on LinkedIn is connect with as many recruiters as you can. Go to the advanced search, put in the title recruiter, put in the location. Go connect, because those are the people. They're also connected with hiring managers. So if somebody's, the point of connecting is so that when someone's looking for you, you'll actually come up in their search results. And by the way, if you're third person from me, and if you don't know what that is, we don't have time right now, but if you're first person connected with me, you come up higher in my search results, so that puts you higher, closer to the front of the line. So please connect with as many people as you can. Connect with hiring managers, potential hiring managers, connect with the recruiters, right? Connect with peers. Connecting with people who you know, that's comfortable, but I don't know that that's going to do you a whole lot of good unless they're a recruiter, a hiring manager, or in the industry that you're in. So what I want you to do is this. So going back to this point of me getting paid, so I'm going to go back one slide real quick though. Don't just apply, and I see you've got some questions, I'll look at it. Here's what I do want you to do. So when you see a job online that you would otherwise apply for, you can apply for it if you want to, feel free. But what I'd do is go find the company, go find the potential hiring managers, go find the peers who work there, go find people in recruiting and HR, and send them a connection request on LinkedIn. Once you got that connection request from LinkedIn, now send them an email message, right? Check out this. So here, let me give you a real live example. This happened on Tuesday this week. So on Tuesday this week, there's a role. It's a data science analyst role, and it's insane. It's posted. I don't ever post jobs, but my client posted it anyway. We get like 70 people a day applying for this job. Most of them aren't even remotely qualified. It's insane. I don't know why this particular one got posted somewhere where everybody in the world is applying, literally around the world is applying for it. But one of the people who applied for the job sent me this. Hi Gary, my name is, first and last, thank you for accepting my LinkedIn invitation. I just submitted my application to Revionics, that's my client. So I searched for your profile on LinkedIn to better my chances of talking with you. I know it's hard to tell much from a resume. The type of complex pricing and analytics Revionics does is fascinating and motivating to me. I researched the team members on LinkedIn and I'm impressed and excited about the possibilities. I check many of the boxes on the job description. For the ones that I don't, I'll make up for it by learning quickly and doing whatever it takes to get the job done right every time. I welcome a conversation to discuss how I might be able to help the Revionics team achieve and exceed its goals. Sincerely, this person. Do you think I talked to this person? Yes. In a heartbeat. Are you kidding me? She's not even remotely qualified. She's just now graduating school. She'd have to have 8 years worth of experience to have anywhere close to getting hired for this particular job. That's just, but isn't that interesting? Despite the fact that she's not even qualified for this job, I guarantee you, not only are we talking to her, we presented her over to the organization to put them on the person's radar who is the head of the team, who does hire people who are like her, and I'm going to stay on it until she gets hired at Revionics, because there is a place for her. And part of the reason why there's a place for her is she does what it takes to get the job done, and she knew what it was going to take to get the job done was to find me. Yes, sir.
How do you square her not being remotely qualified with her having said, I checked many of the boxes on the job description?
She's too young and naive to understand what some of those boxes really were. What's that?
You didn't feel that she was missing?
No, I felt, you'd have to see her resume, and you'd have to know what the role was, but she's one of those people that what she's done is, it's the beginning of the path to this. And in data science analytics, like so many other things, you've only been in school doing it, you don't know what the people in the real world really do, but who she is and how she speaks and the education she's got and the projects she's done, she's at the beginning of the path, right? So she does check a lot of the boxes, just the check is called, I'm aware of it, and I did it in school one time, whereas what we need is check the box called, you could teach somebody to do it and you've been in the industry and you know how, we just need somebody with more expertise. So she does check the boxes, they're just little light colored check boxes, not nice and big and dark with us. I need somebody that can mark them with a Sharpie, you know. Does that answer your question? Cool. So, if I got paid because you got hired, when you see there's a job online, go find the people and send a message like that, right? Send a message like that. Don't send that one, right? The one that comes from your heart, right? And I would never, ever dare give you a template because it needs to be from you, right? Not from me. It's not a template message. I believe in the energies of the universe. Now, I can sniff out your copied message in a mile. I'll still follow up, but...
How would you handle a situation where you have a person who wants to apply for a job, but the job says it requires a degree? And that person has all the experience, but they may have a vocational degree, vocational certificate.
Right.
How would you handle that applicant in filling out that job application? Because when you have the...
And I'm helping this individual. I'm not the recruiter now, right? Who am I?
Well, let's say you're the person filling out the job and you read this description and you say, I love that, I know how to do that. But on it says, must have associate's degree, must have bachelor's. But I've had 25 years experience working in that field.
I can tell you exactly how I'd answer that. By explaining to you, is there a piece of paper up here that is not any good anymore? Does anybody have a piece of paper that I can do something with? Do you need it again? Because I'm going to destroy it. So literally, just this week, I was in a meeting. I went in to meet a hiring manager for the first time in a company that I've been working for, hands me the job description, and kind of for effect, the first thing I do is I'll do this to it and throw it over there. And the reason why is because job descriptions are full. Here's what I can tell you. Of the hires that I make, no one checks all the boxes. That's a wish list of stuff. And you don't know which ones are real and which ones aren't. So take them as a general direction of things. Don't take them too literally. By the way, if you're ever hiring, and this is one or if you see a job description, they talk about years of experience, right? You talk about years of experience. Nobody seems to realize that years of experience is the most irrelevant qualification that ever existed in the history of time. I have no idea why anybody does it. My question for a hiring manager is, well, what is it with someone with 8 years worth of experience can do? And they start talking about that kind of stuff, so and say, well, so what you're telling me is if Jose, we're bringing in somebody who has 3 years of experience, they're going to be the end-all, be-all within a couple of years? You don't want to talk to them? And of course they do. The point is that job descriptions, take them with a grain of salt. If you're in that general direction, absolutely go for it. And what will happen is that there will be somebody who's looking at the applicant tracking system, and there will be an applicant tracking system that may automatically screen them out, or there will be a junior recruiter in the HR department who will screen them out. But if the person has that kind of experience and checks a lot of boxes and can talk like that, reaches out to the person who's the hiring manager or hiring manager's boss, you skip the whole system, right? You skip it. You go straight to the front of the line. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's a method, it's a pathway. If that is available, can be taken. But like you said, a lot of those screening programs, if you don't check yes, bachelor's, yes, associate, yes,
Let me be clear on one other thing with regard to you all getting jobs so that I get paid, which is I don't think it helps you to apply. If it were me, I wouldn't apply for the job online. I probably wouldn't apply at all, because the applicant tracking system and the people who are early stage in that stuff don't help me. So if I was looking for a job and I was going to, if I had to find a new job within the next 3 weeks, I wouldn't apply for a single job, but I would definitely use that as a source of finding them, because what I know is on the other side of that job post is a hiring manager who really needs my help, who isn't getting serviced by their HR team or their recruiting department. They're absolutely frustrated, and some of them just got yelled at today because their project is behind because they can't hire someone. So here's what I know, is that if you were a really, really great senior software engineer who could do really large real-time systems internationally and really understand the Google Cloud Platform and Kubernetes and all those kinds of things, if you reached out to Frank Klanen today, who works over at Revionics, and you were a really good fit, one, he would talk to you absolutely right now, and the first thing that would happen after he talked to you is he would pick up the phone and he would call me and he would chew me, right? Do I have to do my own recruiting? So my point is that most of the hiring managers aren't getting good service anyway, and what the heck, reach out to them, right? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I can't enter this into the question thing. There have been some times when in fact, most times when I don't know who the hiring manager is.
Yeah.
I don't know who my own hiring manager is. I've been hired.
Yeah. Interesting. So the best you can do, and by the way, The larger the company, the harder it kind of becomes, right? But the good news is 80% of us are not hired by large companies, right? So as soon as you start getting to anything that's besides a large company, it's pretty easy to identify, even at the size of what is it? It used to be Motorola down south and now NXP, right? Even the size of that company, I can find them. Because if I do, no, you did software stuff. But if I do procurement stuff, I'm going to go look in and around the people who are procurement. And as long as you're close, the other managers know who has the openings. And you can always go a notch up because, by the way, if you sent an email message like this to the president of Revionics, what do you think the president of Revionics would do with your email message? Send it to the hiring manager, and do you think, or to me, or both, and do you think we would give that email message special consideration because it came from the president? Just saying. Right? I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, I was thinking of Indeed, Google, Apple, that sort of things.
Well, here's the truth there, which is I don't know that I'll find the hiring manager that's associated with that job, but those companies are so big, go find a bunch of people who run teams of people who do the kinds of work that you do, and one or more of them is hiring right now, or they're aware of the person who is, so reach out to them anyway. You know, are you going to find the exact one? I don't know, but it doesn't matter, right? Are you guys with me? Is this stuff okay? All right. Sure.
Individuals that I personally know, asking for help, letting them know. Is that also a good way as far as to build some needs on things, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of the priorities as I would set them, and I'm just one guy who's been around this a lot. If it were me doing it personally, generally you'll find, and lots of studies have shown that your close level connections are not necessarily your best referral source, because if they refer you and things blow up, it blows up on them. And so if it were me, I would network the people who are the actual hiring managers and the actual peers and the actual stuff. Now, if the people that I knew were, that's all good, but if I only had an hour to spend, I know exactly where I would spend it, and it wouldn't be with the people who I know who might refer me somewhere. That rarely happens. Here, let me give you a real live example. All right, real live example of the reason why the people who you know best are not necessarily the best referral. I got my daughter's best friend a job at a company that I worked for. She was really well qualified for it, so that, I mean, it wasn't about the fact that it wasn't about the fact that I knew her. I mean, as a recruiter who cares about my client, I would have tried to make this thing happen anyway. But everybody knew that I knew her. It really didn't work out, right? If I didn't know her so well, it wouldn't have exploded all over me quite the way that it did. It exploded on me personally too, right? So those people who know you better have more to risk when they refer you. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying your better avenue for networking is the people who don't know you. Unless the people who know you are in the right space. If they're in the right space, that's the exception. It's all about the people who are in the right space.
If you are one of your target company, that would be appropriate to do, even if there's not a job posting.
Oh, sure, especially if they're in the right departments and stuff like that. But that wouldn't preclude me from doing my own work. That would be icing on the cake if one of my friends helped me on the inside. But you know what? I'm not banking on them because waiting is not a strategy. And why would I wait on you? I mean, he's the hiring manager. Thanks for your help. I'm going there because I don't want to wait on you either. So as soon as you're working through other people, you're waiting. Waiting's not a strategy. You can probably tell I don't like to wait a whole lot. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got two questions.
Yes, sir.
One, you mentioned a couple of times about the filing for your resume. So there are a couple of different directions that I can go, and I'm always putting the name of the job title, so to speak, so that I know which resume I've sent out.
Cool. Just pick the right one for me, and then save it somewhere and change the name of, what's your name? Charles, what's your last name? Okay. Put Charles De Elena resume hyphen whatever the job is that you're sending it to me about. Like save one for me. Name it for me, not for you. Keep them all the way you want to in your archive and all this kind of stuff. Just rename it before you send it to me.
And then the second question I had, you did mention that you wouldn't apply online, but for us that do apply
You
online,
would.
because I do get a lot of them.
Of course.
There's some of those online things where it says, you've got that box that says, tell us something unique about yourself.
Yeah.
Are they really looking for creative stuff, or are they looking for that that, you know, the accomplishments that you've done that will make it.
So, my first answer is I have no idea what they're looking for, and the reason why I say that is the more that I do what I do, the more I figure out that there is no single pattern, and everything that you can imagine that happens. Somebody might be looking for you to say, what's unique about me is I'm an oak tree, right? I don't know. But the best that we can do is to assume that if it were me, what I would put when they're asking about something unique, because actually if you remember my Talent Brand story or my career story, it says, I am a blank and a blank with this thing that makes me unique. The thing that makes me unique is the one that sets me apart from the other people who could say the same thing. I'm a recruiting specialist and a corporate hiring leader with significant experience in high technology companies who are hiring 500 employees or more per year. That makes me unique. Most of the people who say that they're a recruiting specialist and a corporate hiring professional couldn't say that. So what is it about you with regard to that role that other people who might be applying for the job couldn't likely say? That's ideal. And anything less than that is less than ideal. So, does that help? Cool. All right. The fifth tip I have for you, and there's 9, so hopefully we can get through a couple of others, but fifth tip that I have, or the fifth thing I want you to do so that I get paid, is I want you to connect with lots of people. And the reason why I want you to connect, and I don't just mean connection request on LinkedIn, I mean interact with a lot of people. And I know I clearly know that it's harder for some of you than it is others. And by the way, when I say I wouldn't apply for a job online, I'm not suggesting that you don't, right? That's not the message that I'm trying to send. Sometimes, and what I'm trying to do is to amplify my point by going to the extreme that's called, instead of just applying for online, I would be willing to bet you that if you bother to look it up and send messages out to those people, your response rate will go up. So hear me right. I'm not saying do not apply for a job online. It's just that I would move faster than that. It takes a long time to fill out those forms. I would get impatient with it, and I'll go find the people, and I'll connect with them. Here's the reason why. There's no such thing as companies. You know that, right? They're make-believe. The only reason why Dell exists is because we believe it to exist, and we put paperwork around it, and we created all these abstract things that we human beings believe is real. Money is the most unique of those, right? I mean, it's completely make-believe, right? What's it worth? Well, it's worth what we place the value on it. Gold's really worth something, though, right? It's different than money. No, it's not. It's still just worth whatever we're willing to pay for it. Everything's that way. My point is, companies don't hire people, people hire people. I don't place software engineers. I place a person who happens to be a software engineer, right? As soon as you move beyond this notion that it's about a job, and as soon as you move beyond this notion that it's about a company, and as soon as you get back to the reality that it's a person who needs your help, the game now changes. I reach out to a lot of people as a recruiter because what I figure is that there is, you know, for this role, all these roles that I'm working on right now, there is someone in this town whose family and life will truly benefit by this particular role and this particular client. I'm fortunate that I have the ability to kind of be selective about who I work with so that I can universally say that that's true. But if that's true, aren't I obligated in some moral sense to go find that person who would most benefit from this particular role? How dare I not reach out to 200 different people so that they could all have a chance of making this consideration to change their lives in a way that's going to make a difference for people? That hiring manager who needs your help, their raise might be on the line, their job might be on the line. They need your help. So how dare you have a moral obligation to go find those human beings who need your help. And again, I'm amplifying it, I'm taking it to the extreme, but if you can go there, then it's all about connecting with people. So here's a suggestion. Stop wasting your time researching companies. How much raise your hand? I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time researching companies, and they go on Glassdoor and they do all this stuff, and they find companies that they think they'd like to work for. You send stuff out and you get no response from them, and you never communicate with anybody. That was an absolute total waste of your time. I mean, what did it turn into? It kind of turned into nothing. So I think it's a good place to hide, right? I think working on your resume more than is necessary is a great place to hide. But stop wasting your time researching people. Instead, start researching people. Go find the people who have the problems that you solve. Go find the people who are already solving the kinds of problems that you solve. And let me be more direct. Go find the people who are already in the jobs that make sense for you and make a list of the places where they work. And when you make a list of the places where the people who are in the jobs that make sense for you work, now go find the hiring manager, go find the hiring manager's boss, go find the recruiter, go find HR, go find peers who might be getting an employer referral bonus if they send you in, and go connect with those human beings, because how dare you not? Because if there's a job that's posted out there, they clearly need your help. And what's happening for them is that their HR and their applicant tracking system and their recruiters are so bogged down that they're not getting the service that they need. You're waiting in line somewhere. The line is really long. The person running the machine is not qualified to make the judgment because they don't know the difference between a product manager and a project manager because they haven't had that level of experience. And you just didn't reach out to the hiring manager who needs your help, right? So connect with people. Connect with people, communicate with people, and that's where your answer is. And specifically the people to communicate with are, go find the people who are in the jobs that make the most sense for you. Go find the people that they work with, who their bosses are, reach out to them, connect with them. Now, when you send them messages, and I'd love to kind of share more detail with you, and if you want that, I'll show you then how to get a hold of me, and maybe I can do some more of this. But if I was communicating with the people, my message that I would send to people if I was looking for a job is really simple. If I'm reaching out to the hiring manager who runs, some software development team or what have you, it's the exact same message I send to individuals when I'm trying to get their attention. If Darren, if you got a message for me and I was trying to recruit you, my message is really simple. Hey, when the time is right, consider Revionics. I'd love it. I'd welcome the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Right? And what's going to happen is you got that message. You're going to go look. You're going to go see that I'm a recruiter. I click on the link to Revionics. You're going to connect the dots, right? So if I was reaching out to hiring managers, I would do the same thing. What's your name, sir? Wesley? It might be, hey, Wesley, I'm a software engineer and a DevOps professional here in town. When the time is right and you're building your team, I would welcome the opportunity to have a conversation with you. If you're in the mode of hiring, which, by the way, you know that by the time a job is open, that the hiring manager has known for months that they needed to hire somebody, right? So there's this little short window of time where they're desperate to hire somebody once they finally got permission. There's way more time than that. So if you know in a couple of months you're working to try to get approval, would you talk to me? So my point is, by finding the hiring managers at any given time, so let's say that you're in an industry like software and turnover in that space is about a third, about 35-40% per year for most companies. So let's say that there were 500 hiring managers who run teams that do the kind of work that you do. If there are 500 of them, then that means, about 175 hires are going to happen in that set of 500? Most of the time they know at least 4 months in advance. So if we divide the quarter into years, that's 70 or so per quarter who are getting hired, 70 or 80? And the people knew well ahead of time. Of those 500 hiring managers, there's about 100 of them who are either currently hiring or know they're going to. And so why not reach out to them? You're going to find them at the right time, right place, and you're going to be serendipity that drops into their email just at the right time because they just got chewed in a meeting.
Does that letter include any details, like the resume or cover letter that they?
No, that would be kind of presumptive. I'll send you a link to my LinkedIn profile, right? All I'm doing is saying, hey, I'm a network specialist. I do that kind of stuff, doing a little bit of networking. When the time is right and you're building your team, I would welcome a conversation with you. If they're hiring and they look at your profile and do those kinds of things, they will self-select. And if you send that message to one person, nothing's happening. Send it to 2 people, nothing's happening. With regard to most of the positions that I work, we send out messages to 150, 175, 200 people. So that's the order of magnitude that I'm talking about. Some of you are talking about like the what to do list and stuff like that, and I talked to a number of different people who are looking for jobs, and I think sometimes they just don't know what to do. If I was looking for a specific job, whichever one, or working for one of you, I could work 50 hours a week doing what I need to do to get you placed or whatever it is. If I was only focused on just you, right, or if it were just me, I could spend a lot of time doing it. So if you have time on your hands and you don't know what to do, then it just means that you don't know what to do, that there isn't anything to do. Reach out to people, go find them, connect with them, and start sending them messages. Do that instead of, and then once you've done that, and you can't connect on LinkedIn anymore because it won't let you anymore because you sent 300 out in a day or whatever it is, now go do the things that are on the things to do list. Because other than that, you're busy. This is your job, right? As a recruiter, my job as a recruiter is exactly the same as your job as somebody who's looking for a job. It's exactly the same. Connect with a whole lot of people and find some people in the world who you can help, right? So that's what that's all about. We good to do 1, maybe 2 more of these? All right. Are we all right? Is this helpful? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so here we go. What little purple. I don't pay enough attention to this. I got to get used to it. There's some good questions that are out there. I'll follow up with the questions, and I'm going to overcommit myself and all that. I'm really kind of busy. All right. Number 6, please, please, please prepare for your interviews. And I think people know that. You know that, right? But then as a recruiter, I have no idea why almost no one does it. And I think the answer is because you don't know what to do to prepare, apparently, because my experience says that. So I had an interview in the truck on the way over here. I try not to do it on Bluetooth, but I did. I had an interview in the truck on the way over here. And I apologize for that. But, so here's how the call went. So if you're on a call with me, what's your name, Jenna? If you're on a call with me, our call would go something like this. Hey, Jenna, thanks so much. I've been really looking forward to this call. First thing, though, is I want to check. Is now still a good time for you? Okay, great. So I'll introduce myself and all kinds of things. And what will happen is that pretty quickly I'll say, you know what, I don't really expect you to know anything about Revionics, so it's okay that if you don't, but, you know, why don't you tell me what you know, and I'll take the ball from there. I'll take you behind the scenes and tell you all kinds of stuff. So what is it you understand or know about Revionics? So this gentleman, senior software engineer, all that kind of stuff, you know what he told me? I hadn't really had time to check it out or anything. I can tell you where he worked. I can tell you where he went to school. I can tell you how long he was at a number of different places. I can tell you the progression of his technology. I went and did my homework. I spent 10 minutes checking this dude out. Are you kidding me? Really? All right. So that won't eliminate him from my consideration, but I guarantee you it's not even necessarily, so many people do that, it's not even a mark against them because I wouldn't get paid. If I excluded everybody who did that, I'd never get paid, right? Because so many people do that. But alternatively, right? So here are the most common things that happen are these. I didn't have time. Okay. Or they take a swing and they're not even close, which is worse, right? Because now through the interview and hiring process, you're exposing to me your decision-making style. That's a big part of what I'm evaluating is how well do you make decisions. That was a really bad decision to wing that in front of me. Are you kidding me? We do marketing analytics kind of stuff? I mean, you didn't even look at the website. You didn't even check it out at all. And you made the really bad decision to try to make some stuff up. Okay, this is not cool, but this made you like everybody else. This is really not cool, and I have a problem with you now, and things better get better. And I just decided something about you. I try to remove my confirmation bias because I'm doing this so long. I'm probably pretty good at it, but I know that I still have it. And the ones who did their homework, right? Super rare. Let me tell you real quick what I think your homework looks like. I'm going to go back to this slide. Come on. Here's what I think it looks like. Know the company. Know their products and services. You know? I mean, somebody really ought to be able to say, hey, Revionics provides a software as a service platform that does, you know, pricing analytics for some of the world's largest, you know, retailers in the world. Example clients include this one, and this one, right? I read a recent white paper that said such and such. Went on LinkedIn, I saw that you guys have added about 30 people to your team in the last year. Okay, there you go. I'm kind of going, dang, okay. You know how long it would take to figure that out? Like 5 minutes. Go to LinkedIn, look at their LinkedIn, look at the about page about that particular company, look at how many people that, go look at the hiring manager. If I knew that I was talking to, what's your name, sir? Okay, of course. What's your name? Yeah. Okay. Mark? Cool. So if I knew that I was going to be interviewing with you, and that's who I'm talking to, I'm going to look at your background and the rest, because we can kind of go straight in. There might be a time we might have something in common. Hey, you know what? You graduated from both UT and Texas A&M. Which football games do you go to, right? Or, hey, you've been here, so sometime during the interview process, you've been with this company for about 6 years. I'm just curious, what are some of the best things that have happened to you? My curiosity, my genuine curiosity about that other person is really, really interesting to them. And surely I should have done the dignity of figuring out a little bit about who you are, because I'm honored to be having this conversation with you. I check out these individuals who I'm talking to, know the people who you're meeting with, know the job, and know why it matters. It's one thing to know the tasks of the job, but can you imagine in the context of that business why doing that well actually matters? Have you considered that? Try to put yourself in this role, because now, if you're the hiring manager, And let's just say that you're the hiring manager for a collection of automobile dealerships, right? And you're hiring me onto the IT team. And what's your name, ma'am? Beth? Okay, Beth, folks. Beth is the hiring manager, right? And so if I'm not sure and I don't know what it's like, at some point in the interview, it would be pretty easy to say, hey, I'm just imagining you guys have 6 different dealerships in 3 different cities, and they're all, you got Ford, you got Acura, all those kind of things. You probably have entirely different finance systems for all those companies and service systems and parts inventory stuff. Wow, that must be crazy, right? And so IT probably has a lot to do in that regard. And maybe the salespeople, are they using their own bring-own devices and that kind of stuff? I might be totally wrong, but the fact that I bothered to try to figure out why this IT job matters and what it might be like, I'm probably getting some credit with you for that, because at least I gave it a shot. I'm probably pretty close. So understand not just what the job is, but why it probably matters to that business, how you fit in, and how you're ultimately going to add value. No one does that, by the way. A few people do this one. Almost no one has bothered to look at my profile. So this would be really advanced. All I can tell you is if you do that, I get paid a whole lot more.
If you're researching on LinkedIn about hiring managers, and you use that example of going to the president, when does it start to be spam? Like if you go for the president and you go for the hiring manager.
So his question is basically, how many messages would I send out before it literally stands out that I'm a freak, right, or something like that? When do I get crazy, right? So what I'm going to do is, it depends upon who all connects with me. So I'm not very interested in waiting, right? I've already talked about that. So I'm not interested in waiting. So what I did was I found the hiring manager. I found I found Beth, the hiring manager. I found the 4 of you who were my peers. I found, what's your name, sir? Ram. I found Ram, who is the likely Beth's boss, right? I found a couple of recruiters. I sent messages and connection requests out to all of them, right? I got a couple of accepts back, right? I found the pattern of it. I'm going to pick 2 or 3 that I'm reaching out to. I'm definitely reaching out to the hiring manager. So if it turns out that I can't find more contact information, I'll move now with the contact information that I have, and I'll reach out to about maybe 3 of them at a given period of time. Right? That's probably what I'm doing. Because if Ram didn't accept my connection request and I don't have his contact information, I'll reach out with the people who did, because at least they recognize me. And then if I don't hear anything back from them, and I know what the email address pattern is, it's first name, last name, at whatever company it is, I'll put it on the list in a couple of weeks. I'll follow with Ram. And then when I send him a message, I'll say, hey, I'm a network engineer. I do these kinds of things. I connected with a couple of people inside of your company. I'm fascinated by what it is you do. If there's ever a time when you're bringing on, data science engineers who are really committed to making great software, I'd welcome a conversation with you and your team to see how I could make a difference, right? And now what's going to happen, So I would send messages to 3 or 4 and then wait a period of time and try a different set if I get their contact information. Does that answer that? But I'm going to do the first ones because I'm going to honor that connection that they had. Hey, thanks for your connection. That's where that message from that lady started with. Thanks for accepting my connection request. So I'm going to honor the people who connected with me. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I got a couple of others. These are the ones that I'll definitely record. Let me show you what we're going to skip. I'll answer a couple of questions and we'll wrap up. Don't give a range for compensation. I'll tell you more about that one. But tip number 7 is no range for compensation, please. Here's what happens when you give a range. I heard the low number, you heard the high number, and we're off kilter from one another right off the bat. Don't send a thank you. You sending me a thank you note, that's fine, but it doesn't make you like me more, right? By the way, the number 1 reason for a follow-up is to put yourself back to top of mind. If you just interviewed with me this morning, you're already top of mind for me. You just wasted that opportunity by sending me a note this afternoon. I'm kind of go, okay, cool, thanks, Kathy, that was really sweet of you. But I'm already thinking about you, right? I mean, wait till Monday, put yourself back at top of mind. Wait a day, right? Put yourself back at top of mind. It's to bring yourself back into the person's top of mind. That's the reason why you want to do it. And instead of telling them thank you and I'm interested, your interest, by the way, doesn't make me more interested in you. It makes you feel a little bit needy. Oh, cool, Tony, that's all good. Lots of people are interested. You're just like everybody else. You're interested? Nice. Okay, cool. What's a whole lot more interesting is give them useful information and why you're motivated to do the way. Hey, you know what? Ever since we interviewed Tony, I've been thinking about, this one conversation that we had. I did some research. I was wrong about what we talked about, right? There's one thing. Hey, I saw that figure out something, give them something of value. And not that I'm interested in the job, but the work that you guys do and this kind of stuff is really motivating to me because it'll help me achieve these kinds of goals that matter to me in my life. You just got interesting. You just got interesting, right? Your thank you and your interested is polite. Thank you, I appreciate it, but it won't move you forward. You know, your ability to reach out with me, get back to top of mind and tell me something that matters to me, as well as explain to me why this matters to you and why you're motivated, now you got my attention, right? Be quick, be brief, be accommodating. Be quick, be brief, be accommodating. There are a lot of people who, through the recruiting and hiring process, they become very high maintenance. Oh, I got another question, all these things they're just curious about. It wears me down, right? It wears everybody down, you're wearing me down. And all I can tell you is that I've had conversations just last week with one of the ladies who, my primary contact, head of HR. And it's just like, hey, I know that your technical team really likes this individual because of what they can do. I'm just telling you that this individual is really high maintenance. They're making me crazy, and I promise you this person's going to continue to make your life crazy and the hiring manager's life crazy. So be really aware. And oh, by the way, if you hire them and it doesn't work out, I'm officially putting my stamp called no on this individual because they weren't quick, they weren't brief, and they weren't accommodating. They were really needy. It makes me crazy. Once needy, always needy. Once you got circumstance, always got oh, I got to reschedule the interview. Oh, I got to reschedule. You know,